Practicing Proper Cuban Motion. The name of this program is Latinix. It is derived from two words, Latin, aerobics. Not only is aerobics the grandfather of this, Latin American dancing as well. And if you've ever seen a Latin dancer in action, you will know that hips is very important. So we want you to focus on hip action during your Latinx classes. But doing your Cuban motion correctly is important. Cuban motion is the word to describe the hip action as it happens from your footwork to your knees into the hips. So let's start off by just standing with both feet flat. If you're in a shopping center and you stand in a long queue, you get tired. You won't stand like this the entire time. You will most probably rest on one leg. And then if that leg gets tired, you will rest on the other leg. Now what happens when I'm resting on that one leg? First, all my weight is on that leg. Second, the knee is locked. And third, this hip is popping outwards. Or when we go on to the other leg, I put the weight on that leg, the knee locks and the hip pops out. Now this is doing it slow motion. So the moment you have weight, you have a locked knee and you have a hip popping out. And you have the one hip and the other hip, and the one hip and the other hip. This is the beginning you need to do in order to loosen your hips up. It's very important that you don't twist with your upper body thinking that now you're pushing the hip out. You want to keep your upper body completely still and focus on the hip that's popping out to the one side and pop it out to the other side. Now I'm going to open my feet a little bit because it's easier to practice the figure 8 of Cuban motion in this position. What is a figure 8? You know, it's the shape of an 8 or a racing track for a car. So if you want to do a figure 8 with your hips, you're not only just going to pop the hip to the one side and pop the hip to the other side, you're going to try to make that figure 8 with your hips. So let's start with the one hip. As you bend that knee, you want the hip to go forward of the bent leg. Now roll the hip backwards, and as it goes back, that leg will extend as the next leg is bending. Roll the hip forward, then backwards, and then the next hip can go into the motion again. This is making the movement extremely big and extremely slow, just so that you can see what needs to happen and where it is you need to focus on the muscles that needs to work. Here the obliques are contracting to pull that hip sideways, and here the glutes are squeezing to bring the hip back in. So go stand in front of a mirror and practice this action of moving the hips in a figure 8 position, just so that you can get the feeling slow motion. Eventually you will be able to do it a little bit faster.